New developments are taking place in the Avdiivka region. The Russians have been conducting offensive operations in the Avdiivka region for a long time. Russia still could not get what it wanted in this region. The Russians have lost many soldiers and equipment in the region since October. Putin had said that he would occupy Kiev within a week, but the war has been going on for more than 350 days. The situation in Avdiivka and Bakhmut is similar. Putin and the Russian army previously thought that they would easily occupy Bakhmut, but they lost a lot of troops and failed to do so. In the Avdiivka region, many Russian soldiers have been killed in the fighting that has been going on since October. The Russians lost thousands of equipment in the Avdiivka region. The Avdiivka region is strategically very important. The Russians entered this region by organizing very strong offensive operations. They were planning to occupy the region quickly by breaking the Ukrainian defense blocks in the region. However, the Ukrainian defense forces in the region made the Russians regret attacking Avdiivka. Tens of thousands of Russian soldiers were killed in Avdiivka. Many high-ranking Russian soldiers were also killed in these attacks. After weakening the power of the Russian attacks in Avdiivka, the Ukrainian army organized counterattack operations and defeated the Russians in the region. The Russians encountered unexpected resistance and lost their concentration in the region. The Russian army is still organizing strong offensive operations in Avdiivka. Together with air operations, it endeavors to repel Ukrainian forces in the region. However, the resistance of the Ukrainian army continues. The latest developments took place in and around Stepove, north of Avdiivka. The Russians decided to advance towards a point instead of continuing their attacks over a wide area. However, the Russians claimed that they gained a foothold in the central part of Stepove and continued their offensive operations. But according to the latest information, the Russians have not yet approached the area they mentioned and lost their intensity in the region. However, a small number of Russian troops are hiding in the rubble of destroyed houses in the area. Russian troops in the region were destroyed by the attack carried out by the Ukrainian army. In the latest war footage, we can see how the Ukrainians spotted a small group of Russians advancing through the trees towards the settlement and accurately hit them with the first artillery shell. In this video, the attack was carried out by only 6 Russian soldiers, whereas a few weeks ago the normal unit size was between 15 and 20 soldiers. This situation is normal because the Russian troops cannot receive reinforcements as much as before, and the old units have been completely destroyed. The Russians have lost a large number of soldiers in the region. The success rate of the attacks in the northern region is very low. A Russian soldier said that he had 75 soldiers in his unit last week, while today only 14 of the 75 soldiers are alive. The Ukrainian army does not allow the Russians who carry out offensive operations in the region to approach their positions. At a distance of 500 meters, they destroy the Russians with continuous artillery, mortar and drone fire. Russians are hiding in every shelter they find in the region. However, the Russians coming out of these shelters are instantly destroyed. The Ukrainian army observes the region very well. It continues to destroy the Russians by expanding the area of movement in the region. The Ukrainian army is destroying the Russians with operations organized by drones in the region. Ukrainians continue their attack operations against the Russians detected along the tree line. Russians are trying to escape from these attacks. However, the Russians continue their offensive operations despite their failure. Russian assault units continue to advance towards Ukrainian positions, but they are destroyed before reaching Ukrainian positions. The Ukrainian army destroys the Russian troops detected by reconnaissance operations in the region without waiting. In the published video, 2 different attack units consisting of about 10 people captured and destroyed in different parts of the tree line are seen. A Russian soldier who barely saved his life by pretending to be dead shows the results of such a raid. Ukrainian forces continue to strengthen their position in Avdiivka, while Russians are losing their positions in the area. Russian forces in the region are facing a serious shortage of troops. With most of the manpower having been expended during the unsuccessful frontal attacks of Stepove and with insufficient reinforcements in sight, the Ukrainians have begun to strike deeper and deeper. The Ukrainian army is inflicting heavy losses on the Russians with offensive and defensive operations, especially in the Avdiivka area. These attacks also continue in Kherson and Makiivka regions. The Russians are quite helpless against the attacks of the Ukrainian army. Ukrainians recently identified and destroyed a large Russian base in Makivka. Russian sources reported that the Ukrainians used 4 HIMARS rockets to hit one of the main fuel depots in the region. The destruction of the fuel depot means that the Russian infantry will receive even less support from tanks and armored vehicles, making it easier for the Ukrainians to repel Russian attacks. The Russians are in a very vulnerable position in the region after the Ukrainian army's attacks. This is a good opportunity for the Ukrainian army to continue its counter-offensive operations. The destruction of the manpower and ammunition depot in the region has greatly reduced the Russian power in the region. In addition, snipers of the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces destroyed a Russian reconnaissance group in the direction of Avdiivka. During night observation in the Avdiivka area, snipers of the 8th Separate Regiment detected an enemy reconnaissance group trying to advance deep into the Ukrainian Defense Forces positions. Ukrainian Special Operations teams opened fire on the Russians and stopped them. The Russians lost 4 soldiers as a result of these attacks. Russian casualties in the war in Ukraine reached 850 soldiers in the past day, while the total number of casualties of the Russian army since the beginning of the occupation reached 341,500 personnel. In addition, the Ukrainian armed forces destroyed 18 tanks, 10 UAVs and 15 armored personnel carriers. However, Ukraine also needs military support while continuing its struggle on the front line. Zelensky had recently declared that Ukraine needs more military support with his recent statements. Later, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky traveled to the United States to meet with US President Joe Biden. Later, the United States announced that it would provide new weapons to Ukraine as part of the latest military aid package. The US will specifically include HIMARS missiles in the aid package. The aid package will be worth approximately $200 million. There are very important equipment in the aid package. This equipment will greatly increase Ukraine's power on the front line. The Ukrainian army, especially with the HIMARS missile systems, is the fearful dream of the Russians on the front line. The equipment to be included in the US aid package to Ukraine has been announced. This package includes the following equipment: additional ammunition for high-mobility artillery rocket systems, high-speed anti-radiation missiles, anti-armor systems, artillery shells, missiles, demolition munitions, 4 million small arms ammunition, generators and other equipment and spare parts. With this aid package, the United States has about $4.4 billion left for weapons that it can provide from the Pentagon's reserves. As it will be remembered, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with US President Joe Biden at the White House today. During the meeting, Biden announced that he had signed an agreement on the allocation of $200 million in military aid to Ukraine. Do you think the Ukrainian army will be able to continue its effective operations in the Avdiivka region and completely repel the Russians from Avdiivka? As the US continues to support Ukraine, the Ukrainian army will become stronger. Do you think the Ukrainian army will be able to completely remove the Russians from Ukrainian territory with strong equipment and effective operations? You can share your thoughts with us by commenting.